Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1, Minor Reflex Improvements, written by Dark Prince 010. For the third time, Jaina dropped the pebble, weaving her hand effortlessly in circles around it as it slowly fell. If it wasn't for the distorted and slowed sounds, the mild thrumming bass throb in the back of her mind, it was almost like being in a microgravity. She felt the metal ridge under the nape of her neck, still sore from the implantation procedure, and felt an increasingly familiar reflex of slowing effect as she watched the raindrop fall off the edge of the roof corner in the training field. Then she realized the low groaning noises were actually the words of her companion attempting to get her attention. She released the effect, and the words flooded back into accented but understandable English as the alien grumbled excitedly. And so, while Terran frailty means the increased reflex speed is only in the range of 15 times increased perception processing, your reaction speed is on the order of 1/50th of a click per second, which means that it should offer a modest survivability increase on the edge in hand-to-hand combat against the Liminar. Hager seemed almost apologetic about the increased reaction times, something Jaina knew was due to their limitations compared to some species' ability. Terran seemed to occupy a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none role on the scale of how the implements could be used. Some species, like the dreaded Liminar, had faster reflexes thanks to complex interwoven networks of tendons and twitch-speed muscles, but slow enough cognition increases that the benefit was marginal. Others, like Hagakaruk's species, Urumgarians, had cognition benefits that rivaled supercomputer cognition speeds, but unwillingly stubborn biological limitations that meant that the minds were racing while the flesh struggled to keep even a fraction of the pace. Jaina was still beaming, but something about Hagakaruk's comment sparked an ember of defiance, and looked around. Her eyes fell on a particular tool off to one side of the training ground, piled up with other assorted equipment. "Hey, Hagakarak, is it okay if I try some training with that fusion welder?" The alien sighed, the sound thunderous thanks to the multiple sets of redundant lungs. "I swear on my exact that you Terrans are endlessly amused by those welders. It's a simple tool, hardly as effective as a monofilament blade. And I fail to see why your interest in this electromagnetic field properties carries so much fascination for seemingly your entire species." She shrugged, walking over to grab the stubby handle, before flipping it around and igniting the welder with a hissing hum. A meter-long blade of vibrant blue energy sprang to life from the handle, fading quickly at the tip, and it buzzed with a faint smell of ozone as she gently waved it. "No clue, Hags. Guess a weapon that looks like this can deflect plasma charges in midair holds a bit of a long-standing cultural fascination, as it were." The elephantine alien just huffed again. "But we have energy shielding, even if the recharge rate is lower. I'd much rather have complete protection against a stray shot or two, rather than try and rely on a sliver of ironclad protection. Your fascination with toys isn't exactly a credit to your species." The last comment was made offhand, but Jaina stiffened, her hand gripping the welder in a simmering frustration. Watching another trainee dodge the stun bolts of one of the combat drones, she engaged the reflex enhancer and watched with a smile before snapping back to real time. Almost casually, she said, "Hagakaruk, throw some combat drones at me. Training pad number 3, if you don't mind." He sputtered, gesturing with all 3 arms on one side at the empty pad. "Jaina, friend, you'll be defenseless. The reflex enhancer is good, but raw Terran reflex speed means that you won't last more than a second or two." Even the other cadet in training was rode behind some strategically placed barrels and chest-high wall as he traded fire with the drone. Jaina just smiled. "I know what I'm doing," she paused. "There might be an odd request, but can I request the drone's fire be linked to the tempo of a classic Terran song I want to put on speaker?" The alien shrugged, a very expressive gesture with 3 pairs of shoulders, but smiled. "Well, I've heard your human waltzes, so I can't see harm in giving you a bit of a handicap if you insist on this ridiculous demonstration." She nodded, hiding a grin as she stepped over to the training pad's control console. Plugging in the transfer chip from her pocket comm, she transferred over the audio file, and Haga Karuk stepped forward to perform a few keystrokes and prepare the drones. As he finished, the indicator for the number of drones appeared. Jaina interjected, reaching her hand to cut his motion towards commence button and instead smashing the increase button, until the alien script read that a dozen drones were ready to be deployed. Karuk scoffed incredulously. Jaina, there's a nearby transitway with plenty of trucks to run you over if you want to take a long nap, followed by a full body bruise. She just tapped the commence button and strode into the center of the pad. As the drones deployed and the countdown began, Jaina turned back to her companion. Hey, Hagakaruk, did I ever tell you what was my favorite game holo as a kid? Off of the old Best of the 21st Century collection? He shook his head. It was an oldie, but a goodie. They called it Beat Saber. Then the rapid-fire staccato of an electric guitar flared to life, notes faster and more discordant than any Hagagarak had seen before. 7 minutes later, the song ended. A cheer sprang up from the crowds of cadets, trainers, and passerbys that had stopped to watch, growing in volume from the level it had begun as halfway through the song. Jaina stepped over the 3 drones that had been destroyed from the sheer number of stun bolts that they had received. The surface scorched with carbon burns and still crackling with limb-numbing static charge. The other drones retreated, not one of them free from numerous darkened marks of the stun charges. She came over to Hagakaruk, who was still wide-mouthed with the stare of dumbfounded shock that he had adopted after the first minute. Giving him a pat on the middle shoulder, she leaned over, gesturing at the handle of the power-off welder. Gotta say, Hags, there's really just one big drawback I have with this whole setup. Maybe you could put in a request to the engineers on your end. He nodded, mouth still apart while he gaped. Does it come in red? End of story. Story number 2. The Great Inventors, written by Ori L117. The Great Inventors. That is what the humans are called ever since they reached out into the stars. Standard Grand Pact protocol when meeting a new spacefaring species is to offer them a place within the Federation. The Grand Pact is at the bleeding edge of technology. So advanced are our ships, we can traverse the galaxy in mere moments. Our weapons are so deadly that even the great scourge that once plagued this galaxy now is reduced to little more than a collection of systems. Quakes in their boots at the sight of the warriors we field. Over 50 years, the humans were exposed to the most mundane of our technology. We found out quickly that if we give a species everything, they experience a shock which takes them near 100 years to get over. They took the most primitive of our technology, still considered viable. They took these scraps and propelled themselves beyond us within little more than a decade. They told us something about the exponential growth of technology. Apparently, the more advanced humans became, the faster they make new discoveries. This was unique. Every species before them experienced a linear growth. Slowly, they would advance, and slowly would this growth remain. Yet the humans, they got faster, and faster did they yet become. Once they had improved our current tech, they would create new things that had never been seen before. We went from traveling within the galaxy to traveling 300 galaxies in less than a second. And still, we are second best to the humans. Every member state of the Grand Pact kept their best of their tech for themselves. The humans would share more than any member nation would even conceive of within their own borders. The humans had weapons beyond imagining, ships so large one could envelop entire stars, such mastery over biology, physics, and engineering. They genetically modified themselves so casually that it was like juveniles drawing on themselves during class. They defied the laws of physics so trivially, they walk upside down on streets constructed in midair. They construct such things of beauty that even a supernova pale in comparison. Black holes are now a resource to be exploited. System-wide computers are commonplace, and the great machine uprising of 325265 in the Qualix territory was put down at the mention of the humans coming with their system-destroying weapons. And yet, despite all their weapons and power, they remain diplomatic above all else. Words first, threats second, actions last. They never got to that third point anymore. Not if the species know what the humans are. The Great Inventors. So great and powerful, so godlike, and yet the power never got to them. They remained humble as one can be, when they own near the entire universe and are currently trying to figure out what to do when they get to the next one anyway. It was all so grand. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lord Azrakal, Dragzoon WRE, Holly Sister, Ambrose Cattell, and Quantum Wednesday. Thank you very much.